There are many reasons why a user can experience poor application performance or poor network performance. It doesn't matter whether it's voice or video or a custom database application or a cloud app or internet. It doesn't matter what it is, but there's a lot of different reasons why they can experience that poor performance. And the bottom line is that if they're experiencing that, they're going to send a complaint over to IT, and it ultimately reflects bad on IT. And the problem is, what is the issue exactly? Is it the application itself? Is it the server? Is it the internet? Is it out in the cloud that's a problem? Is it a third-party vendor's network that's causing the issue? Where is the problem located at exactly? And finding the source of that problem can be very difficult. However, one area that is often overlooked is the structured cabling infrastructure. So if you're experiencing performance issues across all of your applications, it's time to take a look at your cabling. This is foundational. If our cabling is not up to spec, it's going to cause issues up the stack to your applications, and ultimately, that's going to result in a poor user experience. So if you are experiencing poor network performance in your environment and you think it might be the cabling, here's a few things you might want to consider. The first thing I'm thinking about here is incorrect type of cabling. And what I mean by that is that we're not using consistent parts all the way through. So for example, we might be using category 6 wire in the walls, but we're using category 5E jacks on the end. And so the cable is going to revert to and we'll test out at its lowest common denominator, in that case category 5E. So you want to make sure that you're using consistent parts all the way through, up to and including the patch cables that you're using. This is a critical factor if you're going to be trying to go to 10 gig or if you're going to be using high PoE requirements. Something else to consider is vendor compatibility issues. So what this means is that we want to make sure that we're using the same vendor for all the termination points. So whether it's station side or the patch panel side, it's the same vendor. So if we're using Panduit for all of our jacks, then we want to make sure we're using Panduit consistently throughout the entire environment. Another item that we want to consider is improper cable distance. And so what I mean here is, especially for copper cabling, is that our limitation is 100 meters or 326 feet. And so if we make the cable longer than that, which is possible, we can plug that into our computer and into the switch, and very likely we'll get a link light, and it will look like we're able to transmit packets across that wire. But when we actually load up the cable, that's when we start to have problems, and ultimately we start having packet corruption, which leads to poor user experience. Remember, too many errors will lead to poor overall performance, and it will affect the applications that we're running. The next thing that I would consider is incompatible patch cords. And so as we were talking about earlier about the lowest common denominator, we'll have people go out there and invest large sums of money into a really well-designed structured cabling system, and then go to the cheapest vendor possible to buy patch cords. And so what this leads to is a whole system that's been degraded to that lowest common denominator of patch cords. And so we highly recommend that you buy patch cords from the same vendor as the jacks or terminating devices that you're using. So for example, if you're using Panduit for your jacks, then use Panduit patch cords, and that will ensure that you've got a high quality infrastructure end to end. Let's talk about improper installation. And so ensuring that your installer is properly trained and certified to work on the cabling system that you've selected is another factor to avoiding poor network performance problems. If your installers are not trained correctly, then the chances are high that your cabling system will not be installed correctly either. And this could lead to excessive bending, excessive pulling on the cable itself when they're putting the wire in, cable that's been installed too close to noise sources such as heavy machinery or electrical, that kind of stuff, or even cable that's not terminated properly or if it's fiber not polished correctly. And so the lack of attention to detail on the front end leads to expensive, time-consuming problems down the road. So the last thing we want to be considering here is how to troubleshoot network performance issues. And so if you believe you've got a network performance problem, what we highly recommend is just get your cabling infrastructure retested and recertified. If you'll do that, then you'll have the confidence and know that your infrastructure is properly installed and it's working like it's supposed to be working. So if you decide to have your cable infrastructure recertified, what that will mean is that you'll have a cabling tech come out on your site, and they will bring either a cable analyzer or an OTDR for fiber testing, and they'll use that to test your wiring and determine if it meets the specifications that you need. So for example, if you've got 1 gig requirements, then they'll hook up the cable analyzer to it, and it will either certify that cable for 1 gig, or if it's installed category 6 or 6A, it will certify it for those particular specifications and give you a pass or fail rating. And so then from that, if you have failed items, you can have those cables remediated, and then ultimately you'll end up with test results that show that your infrastructure is solid and it's ready to perform at the standards that you require. Okay, so in summary, use the same vendor for all the components in your structured cabling environment. Don't operate the network at any higher capacity than what the cable itself is certified for, even if the network equipment will let you do that. And then make sure that your cabling plan has been tested and certified and you have the test results to show that.